Welcome to Solutions with Courtney Anderson. I am Courtney Anderson. I am so happy that you're here with me today as part of the show. And of course, this is episode 165. 165. Episode 165 of Solutions with Courtney Anderson. And I always mention, please come to CourtneyAnderson.com. That's our central website. We've got our blog. We've got all the individual show pages for every single show that we've done that has the full notes and links. And we're going to be continuing to add more content daily. Obviously, we do this show 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. And again, thank you for being part of the program. I do encourage you to share our show on your social media. If you are here, if you have the opportunity, go ahead and leave your ratings on iTunes or any other way that you're accessing our program. And I really am incredibly grateful. Our show continues to grow. So no matter whether you've accessed us via iTunes, via Stitcher, via Libsyn, Blog Talk Radio, anywhere we're distributed around the world, thank you. And of course, please support our sponsors. When you come to CourtneyAnderson.com and our show page, you'll see that we've got sponsors that are allowing us to do the show every day and to grow the infrastructure, to create more content, more articles, the upcoming webinars. So please support our sponsors. If there's anything that you see that you might be interested in, product or service from our sponsor, please visit them through our links on our website. What are we talking about today in episode 165? Well, it is one of the Help Situation Spotlight series. And of course, the Help Situation Spotlight series is exactly what it sounds like. It's from you, members of the community. People share with me ideas, questions, concerns, and they say, hey, help. And then it's a situation that they're asking for help about, and we put the spotlight on it. Thus, Help Situation Spotlight series. There we go. So today, this is an interesting show. The specific show topic today is, I was taught that I have to be twice as good as them, and I am exhausted. I was taught that I have to be twice as good as them, and I am exhausted. So again, this is a show that you, our community members, have shared with me, and I always try to, sometimes maybe a little bit, well, it's tough because what I was saying is that I try to make sure that I share my personal experiences. So in some shows we'll discuss something and I'll talk about the fact that I don't really, have a personal experience with that, or that I have a personality that's a little bit different than that issue, and then I'll talk about sort of my perspective on the issue. This show topic today, though, does resonate with me, and it's one of those things that when I looked at the suggestion for the show, I thought, yep, I absolutely understand this. I understand the question. I understand the issue. I understand exactly what our community member is referencing. So just in case that you don't, here's sort of my interpretation of this. In many of our human communities, right? So we are all human. That's our universal shared trait. Although if there's a non-human that enjoys the show, I certainly encourage them to stay around and be part of it. I know sometimes my little doggies listen, although I don't think they're actually listening to the show. I just think they're around and the show happens to be on. So we all are humans, and we have all these amazing abilities as an organism, as a collective society, to segregate ourselves into the us and the them, in group and out group. And there's amazing research and data that I'm sure that you either are aware of, or I strongly suggest that you take the time to sort of read and see how that works. It's something that humans do pretty well. And so it's not specific to a certain time frame. It's not specific to a certain geographic part of the world. It's not specific to a certain specific group. It's just the dynamics of in group, out group, the dynamics of the psychology, the power of exclusion, and the seduction of inclusion, right? So there's an in group and out group. And so we often have cultural lessons and expectations that are passed to us from our family of origin and from our society that we that we reside in, especially as we're growing up. As a young person, it's where we learn, right? And it's where we learn a whole bunch of things. What does it mean to be a person in that society? What does it mean to be a male? What does it mean to be a female? What does it mean to be different religious adherents? What does it mean to be different races or colors or ethnicities? People define all of this. And so what you'll see consistently is that groups that are not the most powerful groups that are not the most sought after group, right? So the group that's the marginalized group, or the group that's the less powerful group, or sometimes the group that's the ostracized group, right? Members of those groups, as you would imagine, right? Think about sort of us as humans, and that life is sort of like a young person growing up, and the dynamics of socializing as a young person, right? So in the States, a lot of times they'll sort of refer to everything as sort of the lunchroom, the cafeteria at school, because they're the social dynamics when you're 12 years old, 14 years old, and in a big school are incredible. Where do you sit? Who invites you to sit with them at lunch? Are you with the populars in group? Are you with the kids that everybody knows who they are and people look up to them and they have power within that structure? Now, it sounds weird, right? What 12-year-old has power? But they do, because within that group, they may be the most popular 12-year-old. They may be the most sought after, successful 12-year-old. Maybe they're, especially in the States, they're often involved in extracurricular. So maybe they're the best athlete in 6th grade or 7th grade. Maybe they're on the team, the school team. Maybe they're the best artist. Maybe they're just the most, popular kid and everybody wants to come to their birthday party. Whatever it is, they have power. And this whole dynamic, and we often talk about this because it's a somewhat, again, universal. There's cultural nuances, but that whole idea of who accepts me, who rejects me in school as a kid, and how important that is. It's everything, right? It's everything. The in group, the out group. So what we've done as humans is we have moved around on our planet. We have specific labels on different types of in groups and out groups, depending on the geography and the culture and the history of the region. Often, what happens again to people who are not in the popular group, they try to figure out how they can accomplish and surpass their goals, which makes total logical sense. And it's, of course, one of the things that we talk about in every one of our programs, right? How can I surpass my goals? And people try to prepare their children, right? This makes sense, to succeed. So one of the things that I grew up being told, now I can't tell you, what day it was, and it was a Tuesday at 3:52 p.m. Pacific time on whatever day. I can't do that, but I can tell you that I did hear and multiple times, from grandparents and aunts and uncles and mostly older relatives, right? So great aunts and parents to a lesser extent, but I heard this consistent message, right? This idea you have to be twice as good as them. Now, what were they talking about? Who's telling me this, and why are they telling me this? Well, basically, my interpretation is that the people who are in like the not popular group in a society, of course, everyone who's healthy wants the best for their children, right? I mean, unless there's somebody has an illness, or maybe a mental health problem or some other illness, that's the only reason that someone's not going to want that. Anybody else is going to say, well, of course I want my children to do everything that they possibly can. That's the clarion call of who we are as humans, right? So how do you prepare someone to be, quote, successful and surpass their goals when they're in a larger society where they're not in a popular group? It's almost like that parent of who loves their child, and they're so worried it's their child's first day at school, and they have so much anxiety often because they know how hard it is if their child is not accepted, if their child is the one standing in the lunchroom and nobody will let them sit with them at their table. The rejection and the pain and the heartbreak that gives, of any parent, for any child anywhere in the world, of any background or ethnicity or religion or socioeconomic class, right? It's horribly painful. So when someone's in a group that the society has labeled for whatever societal reasons as the less powerful or less um, uh, uh, desired group, then the parents and the family members and the great grandparents and uncles and everybody in those societies, of course, that people still want the best. It's not like people have their children and they say, well, you're not in the most powerful group, so you just should have nothing in life and, tough. Some people, again, do things like that, but that's from a place where they're not healthy, right? They're not able to take care of someone else for whatever variety of reasons. But the group that's not in the powerful position still wants the best for their children, and they're trying to figure out a way to help their children, again, surpass their goals within the society as it is. And so what a message that I heard was, you have to be twice as good. You have to be twice as good as them. Now, who is them? Them is whatever group is in power. And when you think about this narrative, in many ways, it's associated with the Black community in the United States, right? And so you're even in the show notes. If you, of course, this is episode 165. So if you go to page 165 on CourtneyAnderson.com, and the link specifically to the show page is it's embedded in the file wherever you found our show. You should see it. It should say site, and then it'll have like a long URL. Or just come to CourtneyAnderson.com and enter in episode 165 and or the title or whatever, and it'll take you right to the page. But you'll see some links. And so one of the links that I've included in the show page is a link to a book that was written about Condoleezza Rice. Now, Condoleezza Rice was a political appointee. So she was the first female Black or African American Secretary of State. So that's a very powerful role in our federal government. And so that's one of her many accolades, and as a very prominent national figure, and certainly in that role and many other things that she's done. So there's a book that was written about her, and literally the title of the book is Twice as Good, and then it says Condoleezza Rice and Her Path to Power. So I've included the link to that in the show notes, and for a couple of reasons. One, it's showing you an example of this phrase. If you weren't familiar or you hadn't heard of it, here I'm showing you. Like here, this was a well regarded book, irrespective of anything beyond that. The quality of the book. In other words, not getting into a political discussion, but the quality of the book literally is putting forward this concept, right? And where the concept is pervasive in communities. And it's not, the concept may be articulated a certain way in different communities, but it's not specific to certain communities. In other words, certain communities may literally use the word, you have to be twice as good. And some people will add, you have to be twice as good to get half as much. And the idea is my interpretation, again, obviously, right? Is that the group that's not perceived as the good group or the powerful group or the group that everybody desires to be in, still, of course, has all the exact same dreams and goals and aspirations everybody has. And so what people do who of course are like any healthy person, you want the best for your grandchildren, your nieces, your nephews, your cousins, just kids, anybody, really. And so there's this idea of trying to explain to them, you may not be perceived as the most awesome, desirable group based on your gender, based on your color, based on your ethnicity, based on your race, based on your religion, based on your size, based on, okay, we can go on, right? Yet, we want you, collectively, relatives, friends, family, community, to get out there in life and again, surpass those goals and live those dreams, right? And so the idea there is you're going to be twice as good as they are. Now, they are the groups that are powerful. And the idea is that there's a benefit of a doubt, right? That groups are given, that individuals within groups are given based on, and we've talked about these things, the idea of that group that the society sort of holds, right? The stereotype. So there's some people that you could have two people, right, at work, and they both make the exact same mistake. They messed up a report that was a very important report, and they both messed it up, and they messed it up the exact same way. Yet it'll be interpreted differently and depending on the culture based on the people themselves. So it could be where the one person messed it up and people will say, oh, well, Rebecca messed up, but Rebecca, she's so smart, and I think she was really stressed out. And I think I'd heard, maybe she was dealing with like, some relatives that were ill. And, but Rebecca, she just is, brilliant. And we're so lucky Rebecca's here. I mean, I know fear or concern this will ever happen again. And I just hope Rebecca's not too hard on herself, that she doesn't beat up on herself for this because everybody makes mistakes. Nobody's perfect. Option one. Option two could be, oh, Tim, Tim failed. Tim really messed up. Tim was a disaster. I'm so embarrassed. I can't believe that Tim did this. What did we expect? I wasn't even in favor of, hiring Tim to begin with. And we gave him a chance. And look what happened. I mean, really, seriously. I mean, it's embarrassing. Oh, Tim, poor Tim. We can't afford to keep him here not any longer. Who knows what he would do in the future? Okay. And literally, I said the exact same thing happened. There's amazing studies. Well, they may not be amazing, depending on your perspective, but data, right? So there's some studies that have, tested this hypothesis, right? They'll go out and they'll take an identical resume, and the only thing they'll change is like literally the name. So it's identical because it's imaginary, right? So these are experiments. So they'll take the exact same content, same degree, same education, same age, same experience, same certification, all of it. The only thing they'll do is change the names. And what they're testing is to see how people, literally exact same document, how people's perception of gender, right? So if there's a feminine name and a male name, or those that are perceived to be, of religion, of ethnicity, of national origin, right? So maybe there's a name that sounds as if it's from a Latin culture. Maybe there's a name that sounds like it's from an Asian family. Maybe there's a name that sounds like it's from a African family. Maybe there's a name that sounds like it's from a Russian family. I mean, this has been done many times, and it's amazing how, again, depending on your perspective, it's interesting at least how people will react to the exact same facts once you put these filters on, right? One's perceived female, one's perceived Russian, one's perceived French, one's perceived to be from from the continent of Africa, one's perceived to be Native American, and this is done. And it's interesting in that you do get different outcomes, and you wouldn't expect that obviously if we were talking about hiring, we were talking about job qualities, because the qualities are literally identical. What's going on? So we talked about stereotype threat, and we certainly have lots of programs where we address this because it's a really important part of global business. It's a really important part of getting stuff done, and it's something that can help us or hinder us in terms of our understanding of how we utilize stereotypes, because we all utilize them. We're all subject to having these skew our perceptions and help us make really poor decisions, and how they impact us externally, how other people view us with these filters, right? So this idea of being twice as good, the idea that I picked up growing up was first that the people sharing this wanted me to succeed in whatever it was that my goals were. And no one knows what they are when you're a little kid, but whatever, the big dream that everybody has, you can do it, for their grandchild or great niece or whatever. Okay. So that was the first part, and that was the most important part. The second part was trying to give little kids an awareness of at least the adult's perception at that time of how things would work in that society, and trying to say you're probably not going to get the benefit of a doubt. And in my personal individual perspective, I think it was a couple of reasons that I was told this. One, I'm a female, and we know from a global perspective that women have had a little bit of a different journey for equal opportunity, equal societal rights, certainly equal opportunities in terms of profession and income and things of that nature. So that's a legitimate, documented issue. The other challenge is that I'm black, which is called different things at different times. So within like my grandparents' lifetime, there were a lot of different words, right? They were colored, they were Negro, um, they were black, and then toward the end of their lives, African American. So whatever. But I'm a darker skin tone. I'm a darker skin tone and I'm black. Now those are two different things. There are people I very close relatives who identify ethnically as black, but they have a very light skin tone, so they're treated and perceived in society as non-black because they look like a very fair-skinned person. So there's layers upon layers of all this stuff. But the point is that people were trying to, I think, again, the first important part was that they cared about me and they wanted me to succeed in whatever way that meant. And the second part was they were concerned about the world as they understood it at that time, and that I had some potential issues that shouldn't necessarily prevent me from dreaming as big as I could and accomplishing whatever potential things may happen. And it's interesting because I think about this, and all of these people, they're all dead, right? All my grandparents and my great uncles and great aunts, and it's interesting because a lot of the relatives who were telling me this, they were born in like the 1920s or the teens, right? About 100 years ago now. And their life had been so different. But it's touching even now to sit here and think about this. They didn't know what the future would hold. I mean, they had no clue what would happen in the years to come. And I'm touched that they had enough faith and belief in the opportunities opening up that they did. They were, you can do this, right? And that they cared enough, about me to make it clear, like they wanted me to get out there in life and do whatever it is I could, and that they were trying in their own way to help me be prepared. That maybe my analogy earlier of going to the lunchroom, right? Maybe when I went to the lunchroom of life, right? When I went to go apply for a job, when I went to go, try out for some important activity or opportunity, that I may not be always warmly welcomed, or I may actually have people resist me based on gender, based on color, based on ethnicity, based on whatever, and they're doing everything that anybody, again, who's healthy does. Nobody wants that. We don't want that for a stranger, right? It's heartbreaking, rejection and pain, and no one wants that. So what they're trying to do, I think, is give an sort of an offensive weapon, right? Thinking maybe I'm not obviously wasn't them, but thinking I can't change magically the world, because if we could, then we'd all do that, especially for people who's you love your family and relatives and community members. But I think they thought maybe here's an offensive way to just be excellent, right? Be twice as good. So I'm sort of focusing on sort of the maybe more, we call it, positive side of this. Now the negative side of this, which is what the show topic was all about, is I included another link to a television show that's very popular and has been airing internationally, certainly out of the U.S. And so it's sort of a soap opera kind of show. But a Scandal is the show, and there's an article I've linked to in the show notes that, again, is referring to this television show, which is just it's a fictional imaginary television show, and it's very entertaining. And it had an episode where the character in the show was using this exact same phrase as our show topic. So I gave one link to the book about Condoleezza Rice using this so that you could sort of research and see that. And here's another example from a media magazine piece referring to this television show where there was dialogue, right? So one of the characters in the imaginary television show says, you have to be twice as good as them to get half of what they have, right? And so it happens that the people who are the actors playing these characters are darker complected, and I'll just generically label black. I don't know their full ethnic background, but so the character of a father is telling this to his adult daughter, right? The same idea, the same thing that I also put the link in the show notes about this Condoleezza Rice book. Now one is a real person who's done many things. Another thing is a television show. But the idea here is that this is not just something that a few people hear or have heard. This idea, and even these exact words, are pervasive in certain communities. And again, the positive side is when people say this to someone, often, usually, almost exclusively, it's out of love and hope, and wanting the best for the younger person. The challenge and the negative side of this is it puts incredible pressure on somebody. How do you measure twice as good? Now, in some instances, people mean that literally. If that student got a 50%, you need to get 100%. And again, the reason that somebody would say this to the person they care about is because they're trying to give them every advantage possibly that they can think of, and they're aware that it may happen. It's likely that person won't get the benefit of a doubt. It's likely that if something isn't beyond criticism, that these perceptions, these filters, are going to negatively impact the person. And again, it's the same thing, right? So, two people do the same thing at the office. They both mess up the report. One person, oh, they're just having a bad day, but they're so brilliant. Everybody makes mistakes. Nobody's perfect. I hope they're not hard on themselves. The other person, oh my goodness, I can't believe this is a disaster. We never should have hired them. Oh, we just have to get rid of them. Who knows what they'll do to destroy our business? And it literally is the exact same thing that happened. But it's how it's filtered through all these other things, right? Through the visuals of it, and through all of these cultural ideas about what it means to be female, what it means to be male, what it means to be a different complexion, what it means to be a different size, what it means to be a different perceived age, what it means to be a different perceived disability. I mean, it's all the same stuff, right? And the challenge is it's the people who get the benefit of a doubt often aren't even aware that they have that. And that's what sometimes is referred to as privilege, right? Like you don't even necessarily realize you're getting the privilege because it's just sort of there all the time. And yet the other people who are in the group that don't ever get that benefit of a doubt, that constantly have the conclusion, oh, we knew it. We knew we never should have let fill in the blank someone like whatever, someone of your complexion or your background or your age or your gender or your disability or your size or your religion. I mean, you can, whatever you want to fill this in when you can, and then people say, see, we should have known it. See, look at that. They messed up. Now, the reality, of course, is everybody messes up. You mess up, I mess up, everybody messes up. That's just life. Yet these expectations and the way that people draw conclusions are impacted in the majority of the world, actually, by some issue. Now, depending on where you are in the world, are different issues. So I've worked in parts of the world where it's all about your tribe, what tribe, which is hard for me to understand because I don't come from growing up in that culture. I can't even exactly understand how people know who's in what tribe when I'm in those parts of the world, because I'm sort of looking around thinking, I don't know. That's because I don't have the context. Of course I don't understand. I don't understand the history. I don't understand the different regional accents. I don't understand the different surnames. I don't understand what other people who are from that place, to them, it's so obvious. And when we talk about the drawback, and when the community member who put the show suggestion forward is saying, I'm exhausted, what that means is, just imagine if everything you're doing in life, right, from your earliest time of being focused, you're knocking yourself out trying to just be beyond excellent, because you're trying to give people who want to deny you opportunities no room. You're trying to take away every possible legitimate argument against you. And that's why you're trying to be twice as good. And that's why you're knocking yourself out, because and some of this is just the carried on perception of what your culture taught you. So what tends to happen is this: the person who was brought up sort of hearing these things and from this culture, they go into situations already perceiving that they're going to be potentially judged more harshly. And the challenge with that, of course, is you already are geared and expecting this, right? So then when anything happens that actually could be somebody judging somebody more harshly or unfairly, then it just reinforces in that person's mind, see, I knew that's how they treat fill in the blank. People in a wheelchair, women, men, people from Eastern Europe, people who speak Spanish, people who have Asian ancestry. I mean, you can just fill in the blank. But the point is that when something does happen, then the person feels like, see, I knew it. And it just reinforces in their mind. And for the personality type who really wants to surpass those goals, then they begin potentially. This is why this is a help situation spotlight show. They begin to carry literally this burden. Because if they're in a group and they're told, hey, the expectation is that you're going to do, four things. In their mind, I had to do twice as much just to be able to get to people not wanting to deny me, right, the opportunity. So their mind, they hear four, but then they're like, I have to do eight. And not only do eight, but I have to do eight exceptionally, right? So that they can't deny what I've done. That is a lot of pressure. And the longer that somebody has a mindset like that, especially if they had that as a child and then as a teenager and then as a young adult and then in their career, the longer this goes on, that's why the community member who shared the show is saying they're exhausted. It's exhausting. Now, of course, this begs all types of questions. I mean, I think an accurate assessment would be that some people are so conditioned, right? They've had so much reinforcement of this sort of behavior where they anticipate this, and then they do everything they can to outdo whatever the expectation is at this really incredibly high level of performance, so that they feel they're trying to do is offensively prevent denial of whatever opportunity it is. The challenge, of course, though, is that in some instances they're doing things that they're not even necessary, because in many instances, especially, there have been rapid changes in society, and I mean rapid changes in society, right? So for me, a lot of the people that I was sharing, they're all passed away, right? My grandparents and great aunts and that generation, and older than that, right? People who were born in the 19 teens or the 1920s had a totally different life experience than I've had. A lot of it's because society's changed. I mean, literally the rules have changed. So things that they couldn't have even imagined happening or being possible now happen. Right? I can walk around all over society. I can go to eat in restaurants. I can stay in all different hotels. I can shop in stores. I can go to apply to different schools. I mean, I can drink out of different water fountains. I mean, all this access to public facilities and all of these things are not, old. These things are new. I can vote. I can have a totally different expectation of my safety just walking around in society, right? It's a very different life experience. Things do change. And so it certainly is possible that someone who's had this expectation and is sort of conditioned and spent a whole lifetime in this, like, I have to be twice as good, I have to be twice as good, I have to be twice as good, I have to be twice as good while being excellent, and while seeming positive and keeping up a great attitude. I mean, it's a lot, mentally and depending on the task physically. And it is exhausting. And my argument is that in some instances, it's probably not even needed, right? Because there may be a situation where nobody's even expecting that. But you have these vestiges of what you anticipate. And the challenge, though, is every single time, again, that somebody experiences something where somebody directly does say, oh, we never should have had a woman. We never should have had a woman. We knew women are just too weak and you wouldn't be able to handle the pressure. And, we never should have given you this opportunity. If someone does something like that and says things like that, even though it's illegal in many parts of the world, but people do it, just like people violate all types of laws, it reinforces in that person's mind, see, I can't let up. I can't ever feel like I can only do what everybody else is doing. I have to continue to do at least twice as good or more because I knew it, right? I knew that my gender was an issue, or I knew that my complexion was an issue, or I knew that my disability or special need or differently abled part of me was an issue. And it's so difficult because the person who's walking around with this framework has no ability to know when it's accurate or not accurate, other than when somebody explicitly says or does something that then that says to them, I thought that they didn't want a woman here, and then now the boss just said, yeah, women are too stupid. Okay, well, that was pretty explicit. Except for that, the rest of this is all really murky, and it's challenging for the person mentally because they're never really sure when they're supposed to be this sort of superhuman version of themselves, right? And then depending on the society, in addition to whatever performance that you're trying to do, whether it's a professional or athletic or entertainment or educational or whatever, you also have these cultural expectations of, you don't want to be angry. You don't want to seem like you're stressed out. You don't want to seem like you're, unhappy. So it's a very wearing psychological perspective. And that's why the show is help situation spotlight. People are exhausted. Now, I said earlier, this specific phrasing, right, that twice as good as them is used more often in different communities. And so I put those show links and I refer to some examples, one in just popular culture and sort of in fictional entertainment, and one about a real life person, a biography. Okay. The idea, though, of having to outwork other groups is universal among groups that are not that powerful. So you'll hear this with any immigrant community almost anywhere in the world. I've heard it from people who, you name an ethnic group, you name a part of the world, and people, oh yes, I had to work so hard because of how they view, Irish people, or how they view Scottish people, or how they view Brazilians, or how they view people in my tribe, or how they view people from my religion, or this is a universal. The idea that I just have to be so excellent, right? So I can't be denied. We see this, in fact, with some of the very negative stereotypes that are labeled by many who study these things as these negative ideas, where some people are just going to be so super talented, right? And so this sort of the model minority, which is a phrase used in studying these ideas. And the idea is that, well, certain groups, the stereotype is they're going to be just beyond excellent, right? They're going to be beyond excellent at sports. They're going to be beyond excellent at math. They're going to be beyond excellent. And then the person who shows up is not even expected to be twice as good. They're expected to be, 20 times as good. And there's literally this expectation. And again, this is a universal thing. It applies to different individual groups depending on where you are in the world. But this idea is like, well, you're a member of such and such group. You should be able to be, literally one of the best in the world at this, right? This is what your group does. Now, that's offensive. It's ridiculous. It's not logical. But that's the kind of thing people. And so then you have people who feel like, oh my goodness, if I don't get, the top 1%. And, my math score, I'm going to be judged so harshly because people's expectation is because of my, ancestry, that I'm going to magically be able to do math or magically be able to perform well in sports. And again, it's illogical, it's offensive, but this is it's out there though. And then people feel all this pressure, like they've let everybody down, right? Which didn't even make any sense. It wasn't even individual to them, right? We're all individual. And I have to tell this quick anecdote because I just have to, because this is reminding me of it. And I think to me it was so silly. So a long time ago, I was a young person and I was an early teenager. So let's say I'm like 14, 15 years old. And so I'm in high school, in the States, high school, your last couple of years of your primary and secondary education. So I'm like, in grade 9 or 10. And so I had moved because my family moved a lot because my father had a job where we moved all the time, all over. And so we moved to a totally new part of the country and a new state and a new everything. And I started another new school, which is normal. And so I was walking around one day and this guy, an adult man, comes up to me and he says, oh, I'm coach. I forgot his name. And I coach the track and field team. And, I heard, you're a new student and I want to invite you to come out for track. Whatever day. And so I said really nicely, I said, oh, it's nice, I am, I am new and thank you, coach, whatever your name is. And I said, but I'm not, track and field. I'm not, an athlete. And I don't remember exactly, but he sort of smiled. No, you're just going to be great. I'm so excited to meet you. And so he said, I'll see you, I don't remember, in a few days at track practice. I remember it was sometime in the morning. So a little bit later on, I'm walking around the school, and the same coach comes up to me, and he literally had a uniform, a track uniform, like a really nice, fancy track uniform. And let me add, this was a huge school. I mean, it was one of the larger schools, I think, in the country at that time. It had thousands and thousands. I think it probably had like somewhere around 4,000 students. I mean, it was huge. And it was a very successful track and field athletic. They won whatever meets or whatever events. You see how little I know about sports. So this was like a really important thing for the school and for their, record, and it was like a big deal, and for the people there, which is fine. So this coach comes up to me in the hallway. Well, honestly, at this point, I've only seen this guy like walking around in this hallway. I don't know anything, and he didn't even ask me. He never asked me like, "Hey, were you on the track team anywhere else? Before you moved here? Have you ever run track? Do you know what track is?" He didn't ask any of that. So he walks up to me and he gives me a uniform. Now the uniform was awesome. It looked really cool, and I've always liked uniforms. The few things I've tried to do, including my brief time as a cheerleader and other events. Even when I was in marching band, I like uniforms. I just think they're cool. And so I love the idea of a uniform. And the uniform was, if I remember correctly, it was really cute. It was something that I thought I would like wearing this. And so he hands me the uniform, and it was for a varsity, which is the highest level, the highest team, right? Like the varsity is the best. And then they have underneath that, usually junior varsity, which is sort of where you're, working your way up to be varsity. So I'm stunned. But I am thinking that's a cute uniform. Now I'm standing there thinking in my mind, here's the deal. I'm not athletic. At this point I'm 14, 15 years old. So I've been around a while relative to my age. And I know that I can't run fast or really at all. I know that I was born with my kneecaps too high. The doctor always explains it when I go there. And I was sort of born that way. So had this, lifelong issue with my knees they weren't sort of built exactly the way they're supposed to, so it's been an issue. On top of that, I just don't have any other talent. I can't throw a ball or catch a ball. I can't jump of any merit. I'm slow. I'm uncoordinated. It goes on. So I took the uniform and I went home, and I was mad, right? So I think I talked to a parent or and I don't remember, but I know I remember being angry, and I said to myself, well, you know what, I'll go to the practice because the uniform is cute and it's mine now because he gave it to me without asking, in my mind, the questions you would ask before you just said come to varsity practice, because he didn't even ever ask me any of the things I would ask somebody before I put them on my elite team. Whatever. So I showed up at the practice. It was some morning really early. I do remember that. It was indoors, and they had all these little stations set up in this huge gymnasium where you would go and I guess, do the different events or whatever. I really know nothing about sports or track and field, obviously. So there's like triple jump, long jump, pole vault, and then sprinting and relay and what's that, hurdles and whatever. So they have all this stuff set up in little like stations around the thing. And so the coach is all friendly, and I'm in the outfit because, hey, that's like the main thing. Plus I'm new, right? And I'm not this out of it. Like that's where a lot of really, popular kids would be, maybe some, good looking people that I might, maybe hopefully fantasy was maybe somebody would ask me to the school dance or something. Like, I had other motives for showing up. So there I am. I'm in the cute outfit. I did feel the outfit was cute. And so basically the coach came over. Oh, I'm so nice to meet you, and I want to introduce you to assistant coach so-and-so, so-and-so. And we're going to see, we'll have you do all these different events, and then we'll sort of, see how great you are on each one and figure out where you're going to, what you'll do for our, meet or whatever for whatever terminology of their upcoming activities would be. And I tried to say very nicely, I really don't have the ability to do these things. And he just smiled and he said something to me like, oh, you're going to be great. We had a girl on the team a few years ago, and she had a body type just like yours. You're going to be great. Okay. So long story short, I did. I actually made an effort. And they took me to each little station, and they would ask me to do the activity, and then I would try, and then they would look angry. And so toward the end of this, and then we move on to the next activity, and then the same thing would happen. And then toward the end of it, they said, okay, look, we'll just have you sprint. Let's just see how fast you are, and then I did. I was sweating and everything, right? And the guy got really mad at me, right? He's like, well, I don't understand what you're doing. This isn't a joke. This is really serious. I told you to go, full out. You're not even trying. And at this point now, I'm really angry, right? Like I got up super early to go over there. The only good part was the outfit. But by the time I'm running around and being screamed at, or not screamed, but they were very unhappy and disappointed. Now I'm getting angrier because I'm not even getting to socialize or maybe even meet, someone that could be my new friend or potentially ask me out to the dance. So all the things that were on my agenda are not being met, and I'm really pissed off, to be very frank. And the main reason is this. I know I couldn't do that. I said to the gentleman when he randomly came up to me in the hallway, and the whole reason the person he's referring to that had a body type just like me, I ended up meeting that person later. It wasn't that we had a similar frame. What it was is we had a similar skin color, as did the overwhelming majority of that team. I'm not saying that isn't accurate. I'm not saying I didn't have a similar skin color. What I'm saying is that skin color is totally unrelated to athletic ability. And now this was many decades ago, but I remember it because it was so stupid. And it's an example of this idea where people associate what they think are positive stereotypes, right? Well, so many people are such good at this. People are so good at engineering. Oh, they're such great doctors. Oh, those people are the best athletes. No, it isn't. Those people aren't. There might be individual people who are. But again, all of these false conclusions based on stereotypes are not helpful. They're not helpful to anybody. So what happened with the story of the track thing? Well, that was it. The coach was very angry with me. He basically told me to leave the practice at the end. And I guess he thought I was faking it, or like trying to be funny. But the thing is, he never asked me anything about my needs, about my health, about my ability to perform any of these. My area where I excel is in academics. I mean, that's what I do, right? I'm on the academic team. I mean, that's my thing. And this other thing, and so I kept the main point of contention was I kept that uniform because I felt like it was his own false conclusion based on, I believe, stereotyping that led to this whole brouhaha. And the only good thing I got out of it was the outfit. So I did keep it. And every once in a while I'd see the gentleman around the campus and he'd mention his uniform and I would just look at him. Because I felt like you gave it to me. And you shouldn't have given around varsity uniforms to people that you haven't even bothered to ask me anything. My last name, my experience, or even know what this thing is. You didn't do any of it. You just made these assumptions. I didn't get anything positive other than the uniform. I didn't meet anybody to socialize with, obviously, because the whole time the people were unhappy, making me go to the different sections in the gym and being angrier and angrier about things that's their own fault, because you should have asked somebody basically, hey, I'm a track coach. Do you know anything about track? Have you ever run track? Do you have an interest in track? Those things would have helped. So as you see, I'm still a little bit incensed by it, but that to me was an example of the stupidity of these things. It had nothing to do with me, the individual. And these things, these stereotypes, work usually to your detriment. So what do you do when you feel like you're exhausted? You got to put it down. Put what down? Put down the idea that you have to be twice as good as them. Now, I do believe, and I talk about in all of the programs pretty much, this idea of surpassing your goals. I talk a lot about being excellent. I talk about there's no ceiling, dream big, do big, get out there in the world, define yourself. That's a universal thing. But that's for you. That's internal. You're pursuing excellence because you want to pursue excellence. You're doing the absolute best, amazing work because you like that. That makes you happy. That's your interest. That's your desire. That's not anything to do with what other people think of you. Because the reality is, and I hate to, even if you're twice as good or 4 times as good or 20 times as good, it's still not going to do anything in the face of real stereotypes. You could be literally magical and it's still not going to make any difference. Somebody who absolutely believes that a woman shouldn't have a certain professional job, it doesn't matter what I would do. It doesn't matter what I would achieve. It doesn't matter if I came into the job and I had the highest number of elite degrees from the best universities around the world with the perfect grades. I had the highest score ever on all the academic exams. I had the best record of research and publishing. None of this would matter at all if somebody in their mind is totally convinced that, quote, women don't do that. It doesn't matter what I do. You can't win this game. Because the game is illogical and it's based on these absolutely useless conclusions that are not based on anything based on reality, but just based on projections and fantasies and ideas of what people think someone like you, who looks like you, what they think you look like, does or should do or whatever. And it's useless. And you can't win, so don't play. Everyone should go out to be as excellent, as creative, as innovative, as unique as you desire to be, just because it makes you happy. Even when you do that, there are going to be some people who say, wow, that was wonderful. It was so great. That was great. I really was impressed. And there are going to be other people that would say, you're horrible. And I can't believe how horrible you are. And this is the worst thing I've ever seen. That will happen no matter what you do. That happens to people who've won the biggest prize in the universe. And they still get stuff from people. There are people, you can achieve the something that people thought you could never achieve. You could do it. And there's still going to be people standing around. They didn't really legitimately deserve this. I can't believe they let that person. Really? Them? It'll never stop. So don't play. So put it down. You're exhausted because you're carrying around an unrealistic and unhealthy framework that came from a really good place. It came from people who care, trying to make sure that their family and young ones and relatives had a shot in life. And they were trying to do two things. One, an offense, right? Be twice as good. And two, a defense. Understand you're not going to get the benefit of a doubt. It's not going to happen. You're trying to prepare people ahead of time so they're not just crushed and devastated and shocked when they're treated poorly, or when they're ostracized, or when they're hurt. And no one wants somebody to hurt that they care about. My argument to you and for all of us is that we can't do this. Sometimes you may end up being, 50 times as good as everybody else, just because you're that wonderful of a painter, or you're that wonderful of a cosmetologist, or that great of a mechanic. Great. Be you. Do you, because you like it. And even in doing it, it's not going to erase or wash away what other people think about all these different things that you and I all share. We all share some gender identity and perceptions that come with it, right? We all share size issues and perceptions. We all share different, whatever, complexion seems to be a huge thing in many parts of the world, but there are different ways that works, right? Whatever the societal, cultural things are for that. We all share expectations based on our age, or what people think our age is. Do we look too young? Do we look too old, quote unquote? People look at us and make all kinds of decisions. Every single one of us. And what can I do about that? Nothing. I can't do anything about it. Now, I do think we should all be the best we can be and strive for excellence. I think all of us should be the best we can be. Because I think if you're average and you could be more than that, you cheat yourself. You don't explore your own talents and your own gifts. You don't explore what opportunities are available to you. But I don't think you should limit yourself or pressure yourself on something that there's nothing that you can do to impact other people's perceptions and conclusions. There really isn't. We could sit here and have a 30-hour program of just examples, right? Where someone says, oh, people, that group, whatever, give me a group, can't do such and such. And then we can sit here and say, well, no, but so-and-so did that. Remember, they were in wheelchairs. So-and-so did it, and they were deaf, or so-and-so did it, and they were a female, or so-and-so did it and they were a male, or so-and-so, and people still will keep doing the exact same thing, right? So my point is you cannot, quote, win this. So don't play. You should strive for excellence, your excellence and creativity and dreams, and go big for everything that you desire. I believe in that for everyone, just because it will make you happy and fulfilled and excited and engaged in the world and joyful, right? That's the joyful art of business. But thinking about what other people are going to make conclusions about is useless, because it's not going to make any difference at all. There are some people, no matter what you do, they're still going to be sitting there naysayers, negative, complaining, whining, negative. There are other people. And everybody does have, most people have some experience with that benefit of a doubt, the privilege thing I talked about earlier, right? Some people have it because culturally they're in a group that's the awesome group, or the group that people aspire to be in, or the group that's the most powerful, or whatever. But even in your individual, many of you and your family and friends, right? Even when you make a horrible mistake, people who really love and care about you are going to give you that benefit of a doubt. They're going to say things to you like, well, yeah, you did wreck the car. And yeah, you are a really bad driver, but you're a really good person, and I know that you could get better. I mean, they're your friend. They're your family member. They love you. So they're going to sit there and tell you all that nice stuff. So that's an experience of that benefit of a doubt. Live for you. The answer to this challenge is you're exhausted, because how could you not be? You're carrying around this artificial extra requirement. You don't know when you have to use it in your mind, when you don't need to use it in your mind, and you're stuck either trying to do it all the time while smiling or seeming complacent or whatever it is that the culture expects you to do. And it's unrealistic and it's unhealthy. And even if you achieve it, you're not going to change anything that the people who told this to you were trying to stop. Right? They were trying to stop people from hurting you, from diminishing your value, from preventing you from having opportunity. Now, what I'm going to argue, of course, based on my life experience, my age, the cultural upbringing, my profession, is that you're going to use other tools, right? That's what the law is there for. Someone's trying to deny me an opportunity because of my gender. Really? You're going to use your personal power. You're going to let people know, hey, I'm qualified, I'm here, I'm listening, And you're going to also let them know in your nice professional way that if somebody's going to treat you in a way that's inappropriate, you're going to hold them accountable to the best of your ability. If it's worth it. I mean, you're not going to go around for everybody in the world who says mean things to you, because really that take up all your time. This is your life. It's about your joy. You need to go out and do what you want to do, what makes you feel good and excited and engaged, and do it to the best of your talent and ability, and you'll feel really great about that. You'll still have people who are negative and cruel and diminish your value, but that's going to happen no matter what. Just keep being excellent for you. And then all of this idea about what they expect from you, A, you don't know what it is, and B, even if you did, what could you do about it? Because all you're going to do is still be you. No matter what somebody expected from me, I will never be, was not then and am not today, some elite level track and field athlete. It's not happening. So their expectations are that, but that's nothing to do with me. I may, though, have other areas where I do love to explore and do my best and be the best I can be. But you got to move away from this framework, because the outcome that's hoped for, that you'd be twice as good as them, then you get half as much, and then the idea that would give you something, right? Half as much as them, quote unquote, the power group, is better than nothing. But that's not realistic. I believe you should get absolutely as much, and you have to use other tools if your society allows those. That's what again, the law is there for, and other mechanisms. Just be excellent. In business, in a lot of parts of the world, even though people may think really not nice things about us, right? They look at us and look, it's one of those people. If we have demonstrated and do demonstrate, we make money, or we save money, or we have innovation that will benefit the organization, or we have a track record of excellence and outcomes with our profession, people will go with that often in modern times, because they want the results, and they'll just swallow whatever unhappiness they have about whatever it is about you that they don't particularly care for, and do a deal. And that's, in some instances, it's acceptable. Be excellent because you want to be, because you enjoy being. And there is none of this stuff about being exhausted, because it's not about anybody else. It doesn't work anyway. Just do your best. You'll be surprised. I'm always shocked. Opportunities I never would have thought come from places I never would have imagined. And I think, wow, okay, and go for it. As long as you continue to feel good about yourself, be kind to yourself, and work on learning new knowledge, new information, improving your skills, being of service to yourself and to your community and other people, life overall can be very nice. But you need to be aware and vigilant that no matter who you are, of course there are going to be people that aren't particularly fond of you, or that don't like certain things about you. That's just okay. There's nothing to do with you, and there's nothing you could do. There's nothing you could accomplish. There's nothing you could earn that would stop that. It just doesn't exist, because it's in their own head. It's imaginary. It's nothing to do with you, right? So as we close, I share an example of a grown adult in a high school walking around telling little kids, myself, a little kid, 14, 15. He had an imaginary vision based on looking at me for a few seconds in a hallway that I was going to be some sort of imaginary great athlete. That's all in his head. That had nothing to do with reality. That had nothing to do with me. So put it down. You're exhausted because you're carrying all of this, and it's too heavy, and it's unrealistic, and it takes all your energy, and it's not effective, and put it down. Go out there and do what you want to do to the highest, most excellent level, because that's what's enjoyable, doing things that are beautiful and wonderful and innovative. But this stuff about what other people think, or other people perceive you, we can't control any of it. We don't have anything to do with it. It's all in their head. So let them, they're going to do what they're going to do anyway, irrespective of what you do. So why don't you just go out and do what you want? Do it the way that makes you feel happy, excited, engaged, passionate, and enjoy your life. And again, put that down. Put all these burdens down. You're going to be a lot lighter, and life's going to be a lot easier for all of us. I'm so honored you joined the show today. Again, this was episode 165. And please come to CourtneyAnderson.com, support our show sponsors. Again, thank you no matter where in the world you are. We have our international listeners, and I really want to thank those of you who are taking part in this. But again, this isn't specific to any specific group or issue or part of the world. This is a human thing, or in-group, out-group. And you need to be awesome and excellent because you need to be awesome and excellent because you're capable of that in those areas where you want to be, where it makes you feel happy, where it makes you excited to be alive. And then all this other garbage about what other people think about you or feel about you, you have no ability to impact it at all. So just get out there and continue to do those things that bring you that joy, and enjoy the quality of life you've created for yourself. And then put all this other stuff down, these burdens, these unrealistic expectations. And you're not going to be you're not going to be exhausted anymore. You're going to be excited and energized. So again, thank you for being part of our program.